I played 95 hours of Far Far West and the game is a complete blast. I'm still playing through the game, kind of trying out different builds. However, I already noticed a problem that requires attention now, while the game is still developing. The problem is the difficulty. Very hard feels way too easy and Nightmare feels unfair. I'll explain, don't worry. Right as I wanted to make and record this video, the game actually got a patch that mainly changed how XP work and also make the snakes, the annoying snakes, glow green. Yeah, there were plenty more stuff in this patch, but it's not important for the current video, so I'm not gonna mention them. Don't worry, we're gonna come back to this subject. I just wanted to explain why the video took longer than it usually takes to make these kind of videos. First, how does difficulty scale in Far Far West? Well, basically it goes from easy to normal to hard to very hard and then finally Nightmare. Now the way difficulty itself scales goes very differently from other games. Here, enemies don't just gain more HP and more damage and then that's it. What happens is the spawn rate. That's the biggest change available. I guess the more enemies you can see on the screen at the same time. Now, it doesn't mean that the enemies do the same damage to you, no. As you increase the difficulty, the enemies deal more and more damage to you, yes. But they also triple and quadruple or sextuple the amount of enemies that are going to be on your screen at the same time, which is a ton of fun. So where am I having a problem? Well, it's mostly going to be with the spawn rate. Now you might say, wait a second. You just said that spawn rates, it's good to have more spawn rate. And you also said it in the previous video. Yeah, I did. And I still stand by it. The problem is specific enemies spawn rate and the combination between them. Enemies like the flying snipers, the bulls, the shield skeletons, and then finally the snakes. Each one of those enemies on their own is going to be hardly a threat. You can just annihilate them in seconds, maybe less than that. Now when you combine them and then you triple or quadruple the numbers, then you start to have a serious problem with the pacing. So the patch, among other things, made it so 2 snipers only can target you at a time and that snakes have a 5 seconds cooldown between them. It doesn't really fix the problem because most of your fight in Nightmare difficulty, they don't just spawn 6 snakes onto you. They come in waves. The main problem is going to be the combination between all of those enemies, which are going to funnel you down into a very few selected builds. The result is that more slower and more precision-based builds actually slowly disappear as you climb higher and higher. If this sounds a little bit more confusing, let me make it very, very simple. Instead of thinking, what do I want to play? You start thinking, what should I play to survive this? It stops becoming about what you want to play and how you should play, how you need to play. It's a very important difference because once players actually start solving the game in the exact same way every run, and build variety is going to be 0 because everybody plays the same thing in order to solve the same puzzle. It's very dangerous for a game like Far Far West, which is basically built on build experimentation, discovering synergies, co-op. It's one of the best parts of the game and I really would like this to be expanded more and less constrained. Now to triple drill the point in, I want to give you actually a few examples live from the game so you understand what I'm talking about. So example number 1 is going to be the snake and the flying sniper. I assume all of them have real names. I just don't know their names and I'm not willing that much to, explore what their names are. Snake is going to silence your character while the sniper actually requires immediate reaction or you take 10 damage points per shot. 10 damage points, not really crazy. Pretty simple. But if you add 4 more snipers and the fact that some of them can have up to 5 or 6 snakes, like I said, in waves, with each one of those silence duration being 2.5 seconds, including time to bring your weapon back, you have a recipe for a lot of frustration. You might want to take care of the sniper right now, but then the snake is gonna stop you. There might be a few snipers. So even if there's 5 seconds duration cooldown, you have to deal with multiple snipers. And if you don't one-shot them, you need to reload in between. Something needs to happen, you miss a shot, then you're gonna suffer a little bit. And it kind of kills the whole pace for the combat in my opinion. Also the very simple action of having to look up while the snake is going to be down below you. It's kind of contradicting itself. You have to look very high up to see where the enemy is. but then the snake is going to grab you because you don't notice. So kind of annoying and frustrating for that to happen to you. Now example number 2 is going to be this flying sniper again, but it's going to be with the dynamite launcher. What the dynamite launcher does is, well, as the name implies, he launches a dynamite into an area, which is where you're standing, and he disables that zone for a few seconds. What do I mean by that? I mean you have to step away from that zone in order to not get damaged. Now what often tend to happen is that this launcher guy is going to be behind a wall, behind a rock, behind something which you cannot hit them, and then they're going to shoot at you over the wall, while the sniper is going to be somewhere that requires you to be closer to the launcher guy in order to hit the sniper if you're not using the sniper rifle in the game. But then you're kind of limited to the sniper rifle, and once again you're narrowing down the builds. This is the point I'm going for. There's a lot of enemies that are gonna halt or slow the pace of your combat, are gonna require you to conform to specific builds that can pretty much be like the master key to open all doors, which is mostly going to be speed and AoE damage, spells and things like that. The results of a difficulty that scales like this is going to be a pyramid-shaped build variety, so the higher you climb, the narrower it gets. I do expect the devs to provide this solution sometime in the future because they do seem to be active and responsive to the community, so I'm not really that worried. If you check their Discord, you'll see that they actually posted a poll about making the snakes glow green. Now, they do glow green in the game as of this patch, but it's not the solution to the pacing problem. Now, to their benefit, they mentioned below the poll that it's not going to be the solution just to make them like green. There's going to be more balancing needed there. So, gotta give them credit. The problem is, visibility was hardly the problem. It's simply the mechanic itself. You're able to hear the snakes coming. You're able to see them coming. But you're not necessarily able to react in like a sea of sound effects and just visual chaos, just blobs, skill effects and everything in your face. And like I said, and like I mentioned earlier, having to look up only to deal with the snipers, and then the snake is gonna jump on you. All of this is just so frustrating. My suggestion is to take the 2-second silence we have, cut it, and make it 0.5 seconds, half a second long. What you can do is you can use the same animation of slapping the snake, just the last I guess frame. When you slap the snake away, use only that. The snake is jumping on you, slow motion, slap the snake away, and we get like a 0.5 second of a silence duration, and then you bring up your gun and you can continue to fight, and it's not that intrusive to your playstyle. Now, we still needed some kind of a cooldown between them so you don't get like stunned one after the other, and we got it. 5 seconds cooldown between. It's completely fair. Now, dealing with the dynamite and snipers duo could actually be solved by adding a skill check that also rewards the player. The idea is to have you shoot the dynamite as it's in the air thrown at you, and it's gonna like maybe stagger all the enemies around it for like 0.2 seconds, 0.3 seconds, something like that, with a very like large range increase for light enemies. So snipers and snakes could have a much like longer and bigger range for their stagger if you shoot at the launcher. This way you can actually use, well, your skills to actually give you more combat opportunity, and build variety is going to be high because you can play more things. You don't always have to run away. The reason all of this is important in the first place is not because, oh no, difficulty is hard. No. It needs to be hard. I love that it's hard. This sounds very weird saying this way. Oh my god. Anyway, the problem is how the difficulty is created. That's what I'm trying to say. Right now, the game creates the difficulty by forcing you to have instant reactions to a lot of unavoidable threats, or mostly threats that are contradicting one another. So you have to take care of something, but the other threat is kind of like blocking you from doing that. As a side note, the spawning method for the game is also going to be like a big component that helps push this whole nightmare problem even further. The current spawn system is simply like a 360-degree spawn system, meaning there's going to be a ring around the player that is just constantly spawning enemies all the time, obviously only doing a storm. This is also complemented by enemies that are already going to be placed in the world kind of randomly near points of interest, not necessarily just groups of enemies all over the map. The upside to this, there's going to be a ton of enemies to fight. It really feels like a horde shooter, and it makes the game a ton of fun to mow down all the enemies. The downside, there is no room for any like tactical or strategic positioning to reward players for playing different builds. So a sniper staying in the back or like a tank DPS in the front, it simply negates all the strategy and all the, the build variety you can play just to play mobility and DPS playstyles. Like, that's it. And that's basically how you slowly increase the difficulty but lower down the build variety. Another side effect for the current spawn system is how storms work. During storms, enemies don't really like stop spawning, meaning that certain objectives become more about surviving like endless waves of enemies while trying to interact with something for like 3 seconds. This becomes especially noticeable on higher difficulty or nightmare difficulty, where enemies are going to be all over your screen, projectile all over your screen, you're getting bukakied with sound effects and everything like that, and it's impossible, well, nearly impossible, to find a place or an opening to interact with the objective. Now, obviously, this all depends on the kind of objective. There's some objectives you don't need to interact with. You just spend enough time in the area and you're done. So other objective could be like, there's the one with the spinning the valves, and there is one with like, I forgot one. I think the one where you shoot the cannon. There's a bunch of them when you have to interact with a bunch of things while the storm is going on. Now, I tried it and I was in the storm for like maybe 20 minutes. I didn't touch the objective. I just killed enemies more and more. I wanted to see if this wave like end at some point. It didn't. I sat there for like 20 minutes and I eventually died because I didn't have any more ammo. What I want you to get is, yes, there's a problem, but no, it doesn't mean that the world is ending. We can still course correct toward a more variable build type of game. The way that I would suggest doing this is patrol-based system. Yes, like Helldivers, where if any enemy spots you, they call reinforcement that will come in the form of the flying train that we already see in the sky all over the map. It's such a great idea. It's already there. It's going to make the enemies appear in very specific ways, which actually allows you to play more builds. You can play the long range dude, you can play the support dude, you can play the frontline dude. Build variety is going to be way more interesting because you can play them. You don't have to run away constantly. That's it. I'm still going to play the game for many more hours on the very hard difficulty, because underneath all of these things I mentioned, all the problems, all the everything, there's still one of the best shooters I've played in, I want to say, a few years. This game is a ton of fun. With that being said, good job to developers, good luck to you, and you have a great game going on. That's it. Hope you enjoyed one. If you did, thank you. If you didn't, let me know why so I can improve. Besides that, keep it safe and I'll see you next one. Bye bye.